Thank you, Richard. Our speaker this morning is Reverend Peggy Konkel. And Reverend Peggy and I met in the mid-2000s, what about 25? 2005. And she was hired to be the senior minister at Unity of Blue Water in Port Huron. And I was serving there as an interim spiritual leader. And that's how we met. And we've been friends ever since. Our paths have separated and crossed, and I'm glad they crossed again. Reverend Peggy is an ordained Unity minister. She's a great speaker and teacher. She's an author. She's a mom. She's a grandmom. She's a mother-in-law. And she has a fur baby just like me. And so we have that in common. I'm just so glad that she is willing to come and share her consciousness with us. This morning she'll be speaking on motherhood. So let's welcome Reverend Peggy Konkel.
Thank you, Carol. It's always a joy to come back here. Good, grand, glorious morning. And it is, after yesterday, it really is. Good to see the sun again. I am talking this morning on motherhood, and motherhood is a huge topic. It was kind of hard for me to figure out how to bring it down to size. But what I want to say is I want to talk about motherhood as fact, motherhood as fiction, and motherhood as truth. So I want to start off with this idea that Mother's Day started not as a way to give pats on the back and candies and free time to our moms. It actually started in 1870, coming out of mothers whose sons were lost in the Civil War, both sides. And the first proclamation was for peace, mothers for peace. No more war, no more loss of our children. Let's find a better way. And we're still there. Mothers for peace, let's find a better way. Let's find a better way. And we've all had a relationship with a mother, or we wouldn't be here today. And some of those relationships have been very, very good. And some of them have been near perfect. And some of them have been mediocre, and some of them have been estranged. And there have been all sorts of ways that we have related to the mothers in our lives. And those of us who have been mothers, the same thing. I don't know how many mothers I have talked with that have felt that they have wished they have done a better job at their mothering. We never quite get it right. We're always looking to do it a little bit better. So I want to talk about these points today. And I'll start with the idea of the physical, the fact. The fact is a woman's body can create, with a man's help, whether it's physical help or whether it's sperm bank, can create another being. That does not make that person a mother. This is one of the things that I feel about the whole issue of it's a woman's right to decide what to do with her body, because the woman is the only person who will know if she is ready for motherhood or not, if she is ready to take on the idea of caring for another individual, caring for that individual above and beyond her own needs sometimes, but being able to do that. And so just giving birth does not a mother make. That's a fact. I read something from a spiritual magazine that I receive in the mail and I use every day. And it has to do with animals and how spiritually animals will feed us. And it talked about this idea of, of motherhood in a way that she didn't know any better. And in it was talking about a woman looking after the feral cats that come in every spring into her neighborhood. And she said in this writing, some of those mother cats know how to train their offspring, while others seem clueless, their babies barely fed enough to survive. Some mamas will dispose of offspring rather than care for them. Even in the wild, it is apparent that motherhood is not something born in all. Parenting is not automatic. More often than not, motherhood is taught by another mother or someone in the community who steps in. On many occasions, I have even acted as mama to cats and other animals on my farm. You see, we have a tendency to think of mother as that woman who gave birth to us. And I think the idea of motherhood is to know that it's so much more than just giving birth. That is just the beginning. Here we are with a life in our hand. Well, here we are with our own lives in our hand. So, are we mothering ourselves? Are we mothering ourselves? So I want to go on and talk about the fact that mothering, it takes on more than that physical, it takes on the mental, and it also takes on the emotional side of us. I know how many of us have had some emotional ringers, talking about ringers, that we have gone through with our mothers. And we each have different stories. So as we look at the emotional content, we start to get into that idea of the stories we have had, which is the fiction of motherhood. When we look at the idea of, we all didn't grow up in Leave It to Beaver's house with Mrs. Cleaver. We all didn't have the perfect mother who made cookies and did everything for us. We all didn't have the mother who was there for us to read us the bedtime stories or to be part of our lives. In that way, some of our mothers worked, some of our mothers drank, some of our mothers went out and played around and were never home. They're all different. We have our stories and each has our own stories. Some of our mothers were our birth mother and some of our mothers were not. Some of our mothers were orphans. Some of us were raised by grandmothers, by aunts, by somebody else. I am an adoptive mother. I adopted my daughter. So my daughter had another mother and she's actually met her other mother and she chose not to have a relationship with her other mother. So these are the stories we hold. One of the things that I have found that if we look into the Bible, we find that almost everything about life will show up in some story in the Bible, so that we can relate how life is, not just our story, but the story is there too. So I'd like to go over some of the mothers in the Bible. Well, of course, it was the first mother, and that was Eve. Mother was known, her name actually means life. It means mother of all living, because she is considered the first mother. And metaphysically, that translates to love or feeling. It is that part within us that is that loving part, that nurturing part. Charles Fillmore says in The Revealing Word, Charles Fillmore being one of the co-founders of Unity, that divine motherhood is the brooding, nourishing element of the divine mind or God, in which spiritual ideals are brought to fruition. So we look to that divine mother within us as that bringing forth, that nurturing, that creativity of those divine ideals. So another mother that I think about often in the Bible is Sarah, Abraham's wife. And if you know the story of Sarah, Abraham was promised that he would be the father of all of us. And if you know the story, it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And Sarah was 90 by the time that God said, okay, it's time for you to conceive. So part of being in that place of motherhood is gaining what we need to truly be the mothers that we are called to be. Can you imagine being a mother at the age of 90? For the first time, not even the 10th time, but for the first time. Can you imagine? She should have been a grandmother by how many times over? Then there was Rebecca. Rebecca ended up being the mother. She was married to Isaac, Sarah's son, and she ended up being the mother of Jacob and Esau. And in Hebrew history, the firstborn always was the one who got the inheritance. He was the one who would go on and be the patriarch of the family. But Rebecca said, no, Jacob, who was the secondborn, was better attuned to that. She had that intuition. The intuition is that feeling nature again of us. She had that strong intuition that Esau was not the one to go forward, to bring forth the divine. It was Jacob. And so she set about making the ways for Jacob to do that. Well, Jacob, and that's a different look at a relationship between a mother and her children in the family, that motherhood knowing. You know, not that she didn't love Esau, but she saw Esau in a different light. She saw his gifts different than Jacob's gifts. And then Jacob went on to marry Rachel. And Rachel, as Rebecca, as Sarah, was barren in the beginning. They did not have the ability to have children. Again, when you look at this whole idea, it's the idea of when do we become mature enough spiritually to create what we need, physically and naturally as we are in our humanness. When do we become when do we become mature enough to be mothers? To be in that place where we can be considered good mothers. And there are other mothers in the Bible. Jochebed, the mother of Moses, who was given the idea of losing her son because the Pharaoh was killing all the sons that came into the families of the Hebrews, or to find another way. And again, listening to her intuition, she realized that maybe she could give him a chance by putting him out there to not be known as who he really was, and that was a Hebrew. And so she put him in a place where Pharaoh's daughter could find him and adopt him. And at the same way, by giving up Moses, she got Moses back because she ended up being the nursemaid for Moses in his early years. And so part of being in motherhood is to be in that place of knowing when to give up, to see differently, to see a greater good. And so when I look at the idea of, as my daughter's mother at 17, being able to not be mature enough to be a mother, she wasn't ready, but being mature enough to know it was time to give up, to give her baby up for a better ideal. She was gaining a maturity to be a mother. Then there is the story of Bathsheba and David. And if you remember the story, of David and Bathsheba, David wanted Bathsheba and she was married to somebody else. And so he just went and killed him because he wanted her. And so their first child did not survive. It died. Well, here's a story of many mothers know the loss of a child. Some of it in childbirth itself, some after the child is born, some in the place of miscarriage. And how often we don't look at the thoughts of what a woman goes through when she's had a miscarriage. It is a loss to her heart. She's still a woman in motherhood. But the second child they conceived turned out to be Solomon, who was the king of wisdom. And so when we look at the idea how God shows up in our life, if we look at how sometimes things don't look so good, and we know that there's a greater good coming forth, and this comes forth for our children as well. Any of us who have felt guilty because we have had children's lives not turn out the way that we would have wanted them to in the beginning. If we hang in there, if we're patient and we do the things of mothers that we would want to do, we soon realize that we're in a place that our children will come full circle as well, and things will become better. And then there's also, we go on to Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mother, another woman who was barren at first, wanting to be a mother and not being able to be a mother until the time was right. And then, of course, there was Mary, mother of Jesus, who was a young, couldn't even call her a woman yet. She was a child, basically. And yet she was spiritually mature enough to take on this amazing motherhood role, this experience. So these are the stories that are our natural way of being, where we are with motherhood. So what is it when we take on this spiritual idea of motherhood? What are the attributes of motherhood anyway? Well, you look at motherhood as taking the word motherhood, and this is what I came up with in my meditation. The M stands for meaning. A mother gives meaning to the life of the individual in its care. The mother also models for that individual how to be, or how not to be sometimes, but it's a modeling. We are there, they look up to us. A mother offers herself to that individual who she mothers, who she cares for. She offers herself in ways that she makes herself available. She's there to make sure they're safe. She's there to make sure they're fed, they're cared for, they're clothed, they're educated, they're safe. Sometimes she offers more of herself than she really has. But a good mother offers in a way that the child is prepared for growing up. A mother is tough and yet tender. You've heard about this idea of tough love. How often have we had to say no in our mothering instincts because we know it is not good for the child? The child will throw a tantrum, the child will be upset.
She'll get her fingers caught in the rollers.
But
Or electrical outlets.
Yeah, right.
yes.
Free x-ray.
But it's tough love. No, you can't go out tonight. it's raining and you don't have galoshes. But tender. A mother is tender. Even, some mothers aren't affectionate, let's face it. Some are very affectionate and some are not. Some mother figures just are not. But they're tender anyway. When you need tenderness, when you need comfort, they're there. They're there. A mother is honoring. She respects that the individual in her care is an individual. She honors the way that they do what they do. Not to say that it's wrong, don't do it that way, and not give a better way or a better reasoning, but to say that and then allow them to do what they need to do, to honor them, to give them a place to speak up. Some of us were told that children are to be seen and not heard. How many people got that? Yes, but there's a time, we were also told there was a time and a place. And when we needed to be listened to, a mothering figure would be there to listen to us. Mothers are empowering. They give us the tools that we need to do what we need to do. They give us the education. They show us how to do it. They allow us to fail. They don't do it for us. They allow us to fail. They give us the tools, they allow us to fail, and then we pick back up. And we learn that we have been empowered. We can do it ourselves. This is how we grow and mature. And finally, what mothers do, and it's so difficult sometimes for us to do it, is we release. We release the individuals to their own power. We release them to become mature on their own. We release them to make their mistakes. We release them to make their own decisions, whether we like the person that they decide to marry, whether we like the career they decide is what is in their heart to do, whether we like when they move out of state or far away, or whether they move next door and they're too close to us. We release them. They are free to grow their own life, to create their own beings, to engage in their own activities, to parent their own children. And so motherhood is about hope. Motherhood is about realizing that it doesn't stop with us. It keeps going. And it keeps going. And these that we mother feed us back, because there is that love. They feed us back. And when they feed us back, we are open to receive the gifts from the children who we have mothered. And we know that they give us opportunity as we give them opportunity. And I don't want to leave out you male figures. You are mothers as well in your own right, because motherhood is something that happens after the child comes out. And finally, motherhood means devotion. Devotion to the life of the individual, devotion to ourselves, and devotion as the love that life itself, that spirit brings to us. So the gift in motherhood is learning that no matter what mothering looked like for us as we were being mothered, is to know that right here, right now, we are given the gift to mother ourselves. Anything that we would like to have had that our mothers didn't give us, that our mother figures didn't give us, is a clue to what we can give ourselves. And we do that by going to the source, by going to that one power and that one presence, and asking how to do that so that we can. And so for all the mothers and all of you this morning, I want to say thank you for being who you are and the way that you have been mothered and the way that you pass that on in mothering. God bless you.